Hello, everyone. Today we'll be presenting our progress through the spring quarter as members of the IDI Grievances project. My name is Andrew, and also in the group are Michelangelo, Vikram, and Tiwaa. The IDI Grievance project focuses on the harmful effects of palm oil production worldwide and hopes to leverage data to mitigate these effects by enacting changes through legislations, activism, and through other means. To give more background information about palm oil is currently the most produced vegetable oil, and its production has increased significantly since the 1960s. Its composition at room temperature is semi-solid, its resistance to oxidation, and is very stable at high temperatures. It is grown all year round, which allows palm oil to be produced continuously. And although palm oil serves many benefits in our lives as daily ingredients in consumer goods such as soaps, snacks, and cosmetics, comes at the cost of human rights violations, loss of cultural heritage, and environmental deforestation caused by the palm oil mills. And to address these issues, PalmWatch IDI has partnered with DSI at the University of Chicago and the 11th Hour Project, which have led this project to map the environmental and social impacts of actors in the palm oil supply chain. PalmWatch utilizes comprehensive data sets of grievance logs filed against palm oil mills globally to track grievance records, which include case status, case types, how many companies or entities are linked together in the supply chain. And this allows us to identify trends of injustice in the palm oil industry. Next, we'll be introducing the data sources we used and the data extraction process. The grievance datasets we used came from various structures. Most of the structures were were structured as PDFs, like for General Mills and Signed Darby. We also had web pages like RSPO and Cargill, and also unstructured PDFs for Hershey. When extracting this data, the biggest factor we had to account for was the individual differences in data sources and ensuring that the pipeline accounted for different data inputs. For the data extraction process, we utilized web scraping tools such as Beautiful Soup and Selenium to handle diverse structures. And using the extracted data, we performed LLM processing using Mistral AI and Claude AI to enhance processes such as summarizing texts, performing classifications, and refining our data. Finally, we combined the extracted and processed data into a single data set that was used to create visualizations and perform data analysis across all companies.
I'm Tiwaa, and I will be covering the goals and milestones. So this quarter, we were tasked with expanding the existing PalmWatch dataset infrastructure to grievance parties and entities involved in the reports, as well as relationships between them. This meant we had three objectives. First, to update the LLM prompting. Two, to link output data to authoritative files of supply chain parties. And three, to standardize output schema to ensure downstream use. Our project milestones were creating the supply chain data set, adding party data, and then finally applying record linkage. After completing these primary milestones, we updated the data pipeline and visualized metrics across grievance data, which we will see towards the end of the presentation. With creating the supply chain data set, our primary challenge were the usual issues that come with entity resolution. It was difficult to combine data from two somewhat inconsistent data sources. For instance, one issue was we couldn't block effectively on country to facilitate matching because a lot of the larger conglomerates have bases all over the world. Another thing that was coming up a lot was it was kind of difficult to match company names because legal entities were being included, and legal entities do tend to change by country. So whereas in the US, you might use limited, in somewhere like Malaysia, they'd use BHD. And then finally, there was a lot of inconsistency when it came to the names of parent companies or group names and conglomerates. The solution we ended up coming up with is Link Transformer, which is a really great entity resolution LLM that uses deep learning to identify matching records, and it outperformed traditional methods like record linkage. Ultimately, we were able to reduce and completely eliminate 4,000 duplicate records. And yeah, I think that was pretty successful. Next, moving on to the findings and visualizations.
Yeah, so as Tiwaa mentioned, our output this quarter was a combined grievance data set that contained all the entities that were involved in the supply chain. This allowed us to link it to authoritative mill lists from the RSPO and from the universal mill list. This map here visualizes the grievance reports across Southeast Asia. There were also sparse instances of grievances across South America in areas such as Guatemala and even on the western coast of Africa. In this plot, each dot represents either a mill or a plantation that was subject of a grievance complaint, color-coded by the corporation that filed or acknowledged the grievance. In this quarter, it was Hershey, Cargill, Reckitt, Unilever, or Siem Darby. What becomes immediately clear is that the majority of the grievances cluster in Indonesia and Malaysia, particularly areas like Sumatra, Borneo, and Papua. These are very key palm oil producing regions, and the concentration here highlights where communities may be disproportionately impacted by environmental, labor abuses, and loss of cultural sites. This mapping allowed us to spatially identify hotspots of corporate accountability, or in some cases, corporate negligence. This is a supporting figure that just zooms in on Hershey specifically. Again, the same trends are clear. We have mills and plantations that are committing grievances in these areas of Southeast Asia and adversely impacting the communities around them. Next, we analyzed the cumulative count of offending mills per corporation between 2009 and 2024. Some notable things: Cargill shows a steep and consistent increase in the number of implicated mills, peaking at over 80. Hershey follows with a delayed but still significant rise starting around 2019 that has continued through 2024. Reckitt enters the picture more recently around 2020 and is already approaching 40 implicated mills, and Siem Darby and Unilever are currently up to around 60 implicated mills each. These trends suggest two possibilities: either A, the companies are becoming more transparent over time, or B, the scale of misconduct is increasing. Either way, the steepness of the curves points to systemic supply chain issues that have yet to be resolved. Finally, we flip the lens to look at who is reporting these grievances. The top complainants are NGOs and media watchdogs such as Mighty Earth, Greenpeace, and Mongo Bay. Mighty Earth has emerged as the most prolific, with its complaint count rising sharply after 2018. Greenpeace and RAN, or the Rainforest Action Network, also play key roles. Interestingly, there are some groups like Eyes on the Forest that show early engagement but plateau quickly. This plateau that can be seen from 2020 to 2024 may represent limitations in the dataset, where we only have certain complainants up until the year 2020. With updated information from the grievance sources, or perhaps better reporting practices from these companies, we would be able to run our pipeline and generate metrics like these that reflect the actual current state of palm oil supply chain grievances. This slide highlights the imbalance. A handful of actors are doing most of the reporting. This raises questions about capacity, transparency, and who gets to hold these corporations accountable.
And finally, in terms of implications and future directions of our project, why does any of this matter? It matters because these 5 companies have only suspended 14.8%, or a very small portion of offending mills. In the vast majority of cases, with 293 discrete mills, companies are in the monitoring stage, with 64 grievances are to be determined, with 33 no action was taken. But it's notable that these grievances stretch all the way back to 2009. This is 458 mills where no suspension or no concrete action has been taken. And so these mills are continuing to affect in the various ways we've talked about local communities, local environments, local ecosystems without any sort of action being taken. Across this entire network that we've worked on this quarter, 1,302 parties, from mills and plantations to refineries and other middlemen to those large consumer suppliers, are all implicated in this vast supply chain network. That's a lot of discrete actors, and there's a lot of room within these supply chains to hold such actors accountable, and limit or prevent these abuses that are happening generally in the global South. And given that, in terms of the next steps that we are interested in pursuing, the biggest and most important one is integration into PalmWatch's website. There's currently no open source repository online that exists with this sort of data. And so using PalmWatch as this one source of information for other NGOs and consumer watchdog groups to use to then take action against these companies and suppliers is the ultimate goal of the project. 2 other interim goals that we're interested in: experimentation with other linkage methods and fully tracing supply chain relationships. both to more accurately and to more comprehensively connect mills, plantations, other actors all the way up those supply chains will help us hold these large consumer suppliers accountable. That concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.